projects in relation to the Irish peace process. And most recently, I've been involved in a project called Lex Innocentium 21st Century. And we did mention it before, so maybe later on I see it's on the agenda somewhere, so I'll come back to it. But I'm based in Ireland, and I've worked in the area of peace studies for a long time, and peace research. So thanks very much.
Great. Okay, welcome, Sean. Thanks. Lester, welcome.
Hi, I'm Lester Kurtz. I'm a sociologist and living in the shadow of Washington, D.C., casting a long shadow these days. Well, that may be the wrong metaphor because it's actually kind of dark. It's kind of dark rather than enlightened. So there aren't. Well, I better stop there.
Well, we're coming on to discuss the American election, first topic on the agenda. So you'll get another go shortly, Lester. Love to hear your views on it all. Thank you. George, do introduce yourself. Welcome, sir.
Hello, I'm George Mutalemwa from Tanzania. I teach development studies, peace studies at St. Augustine University of Tanzania. And I'm also a member of the Africa Peace and Development Network, in short, MAMA. So nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Yeah. Are you speaking from your base in Tanzania, not in Mexico?
Now in Uganda, just since 2 days ago.
Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Greetings. Okay, we're going to discuss Africa on the agenda a bit later, so we'll hear more detail. Susan, we're just doing an introduction. If you want to join us, you're welcome.
My name is Susan. I'm a depressed social activist today because of the election. But yeah, I don't know what to say. There's a lot of fires going on here. Four of my friends have lost their homes in it. And so, yeah, it feels very hard time.
Fires as in deliberately set with arson kind of thing?
No, we've had winds 40 miles to 100 miles an hour, Santa Ana winds, and it's spurred off 4 different fires. One 20 minutes away at Camarillo is where I used to live, and that's a huge fire they can't contain, 14,000 acres. It's not a good situation.
So are you speaking about California? Is that where
yes, yes, I'm in California.
And what's the nearest big city to you?
I live in, it's a smaller community. It's Oak Park. It's in the mountains, but a 20-minute drive, and I have to do a talk tonight and pick Camarillo. I think it's not going to be possible. All the school districts have closed down. I used to live there with taking care of my dad, but yeah, it's tough times for a lot of reasons.
Right. Well, we're going to come on to America first item, so you'll get another go shortly. Thank you. Fisayomi, welcome. Do introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Hello again. Greetings.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Fisayomi. I'm Nigerian. I live in the United Kingdom, and yeah, it's good to be here. I don't know what else to say. That caught me off guard. So that'll be all the introduction I'll have for now.
Are you still in Norwich? Is that where you're based?
I'm currently at Ipswich, currently based at Ipswich.
Oh, Ipswich, okay.
Yes, Ipswich, yeah.
Same part of the world, yeah, East Anglia. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Same part.
Great part of the world. Okay, welcome. Good, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so, right. So the first item on our agenda is indeed to discuss the elections in America and their results. Just to introduce the subject, obviously, we delayed this meeting till after we knew the results. I think we know the results now. It's, you know, it's very interesting. I'll just summarize what the reaction is from here in France. I think we're disappointed in the American people. We thought they were more intelligent than this. I'm sorry if I'm offending people, but a friend of mine who lives in London, a Portuguese guy, sent me an email. I don't know if this is true, that 50% of American citizens have a very, very low IQ. Like it was like under whatever, it's the bottom level, which means even simple reading becomes a challenge. Now, I haven't validated those figures. I mean, I found them shocking. But so that's one question, what does this tell us about the overall collective intelligence of the American people? That's one question to put to us. The other is the huge, you see, I don't really buy that. I think all the American people I've ever met are amazing. We have several on this call. I've never known such morally acute and intelligent people. So I think the problem is more to do with the impact of social media. And I think the fact that this Elon Musk guy, he's the real winner of this election. He poured millions into brainwashing American people into thinking Trump is the solution for all the problems America faces and the world faces. So I think that's another topic that we need to look at. What else? Well, I mean, I think I enjoyed the speech by Kamala Harris, sort of graciously saying, well, we're not going to fight and attack the Capitol, because that peaceful transfer of power is part of democracy. I think the Democrats have got to show how it should be done, and that itself is part of an education. Then my last thing, and then I'll shut up, is I do think that much as I appreciate the Democrats and their mission and their message, I think that somehow they failed to engage the young men of America. And this is a question mark, if you take the feminist message so far, do you lose the men en route? And how can we do it without losing the kind of average bloke on the street who kind of has probably voted for Trump in this election? So that's something those are four things that I've thought of. But there are many more. But Lester, why don't you go next and tell us how it was for you? Did you have a good election night? Was your hair white?
No, it was actually, we gave up. My wife's a journalist, and so we went and we hung out in Lafayette Square across from the White House. And she was looking for a story. And we finally got tired and went home because she had to get up 5 o'clock the next morning, because she does East Africa news in Swahili, and so she has to start the day early. Any rate, it was fairly quiet because nobody knew the results. There were some interesting skirmishes, lots of police, of course, and actually the only real story that Mariam got was a conflict between Ukrainians and Palestinians that took place in the park across the street from the White House. Of course, part of what's happened is all of our emotions are heightened by the campaign rhetoric. But that's kind of another story. What's at stake here is the election, and I mean all of the, of course, our talking heads are talking up a storm, and all of the points are valid. I mean, it was the economy, stupid, right? There are a lot of grievances, and somehow Trump's sort of absurd, outrageous rants and raves against the establishment and the Biden-Harris administration, which he managed to connect Kamala, to Biden. They really resonated with the grievances of the country, and people were dissatisfied. Of course, part of this because the American empire is falling, and it's threatening it's threatening common people. But because we've been subsidized, our lifestyle has been subsidized by the rest of the world for decades. But the one one additional thing, which I have not seen really anywhere except on Al Jazeera, is what we sociologists call intersectionality. Al Jazeera didn't call it that, but we have this a really powerful concept that's emerged. It comes from African-American women, sociologists. And the idea is that there are these sort of roads of discrimination. That one is gender, and one is race. That they intersect, and then we add class. So especially those three. But any candidate who has the wrong gender and the wrong race is at a natural structural disadvantage. And I think that was also a major part of what happened. I mean, there was a huge push by the Harris-Walz campaign to address the Black men who were drifting away. Also Hispanic. I mean, the Hispanics. There was this huge defection from the Democratic Party by Hispanics. And again, a lot of it, I think, had to do with this idea of having a woman. I mean, you have a Black woman, daughter of immigrants who grew up, not poor, really, kind of middle class, lower middle class, which we thought should have some traction with common people. But there were just a lot. I think there were a lot of people who just could not imagine the idea of a woman president, the idea of a Black president, and you put the two together, and it's.
Yeah, that's a shame, though, isn't it? I mean, all the work we've been doing for years, and all of us individually, not just collectively. It's like the other thing before I pass to Susan is. I don't know if this is true, but there's a kind of anti-intellectualism about this vote. Yeah. Trump is the most anti-intellectual politician I've ever met. And he just
didn't even know what that means. Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't know. Well, his advisors could explain to him and translate it into his language. And so he appeals to that sort of mob mentality, so maybe we should just shut up shop and close down, because intellectuals, now we can go to sleep for 4 years. I mean, what's the job? We've failed, haven't we? And why? That's the question. I mean, I look at the map of America and I see loads of people on the East Coast voting blue, loads of people on the West Coast. Yeah. I've traveled around all in the middle, and I've met some amazing people too.
Yeah.
How come they've been left behind? Where's what have the intellectuals been doing in mainstream America to let these guys think Trump is the answer? I don't understand it.
Yeah. So I think, and it's not, I think, an intellectual issue so much as an emotional one. And, we don't do well with emotions. I think we're better at rationality.
Okay. Well, it is Plato's birthday. Anniversary of his death, so we'll come back to that point. Fisayomi, you had a point you want to jump in.
I just wanted to say something, because just off the back of what Lester said, I hope I got the pronunciation of your name right. When you started talking and you were saying that there were lots of things that happened in the election, and the election revealed quite a number of things with regards to how the people in America think, especially within gender lines, and how a large majority of particularly young male voters have been left behind. However, I beg to differ on the fact that it was because she was Black, and that's why she did not win the election, or it had something to do with her gender. The truth is, America might not be ready to have a female leader right now, as much as they purport feminism and they talk about feminism and they export it to continents like Africa, where I'm from, that ironically has had about 9 to 10 female heads of state. So the hypocrisy is bonkers. But when you talk about her being Black and the reason why she didn't win, I think that's far from the truth. Barack Obama was Black and he rode on race and he won. The difference is that we're in 2024 and your gender, your skin color does not equal competence. Kamala Harris was not giving the rhetoric that people wanted to hear. She wasn't hammering on things like economy. She just focused on the women, focused on healthcare, and that's leaving a large majority of people out. I know the argument has been that she had about 107 days to run and all of that, but I mean, it would have been better if she was head on what she wanted to do. What exactly are your policies? What are you doing about what was she going to do about issues like immigration that the American people have concerns about? And from observing, okay, someone talking.
I've switched them off.
Okay.
It was Susan taking a call.
Okay. Yeah. So from observing what has been happening in the US and the politics there, the American people like to hear what concerns them. At the moment, the average American is really worried about what's happening with their economy. They are worried about things like immigration. Barack Obama dealt with it, even though nobody's talking about that, and everybody's saying Trump is about to deport everybody. I'm Black, for crying out loud, and I can say categorically that even for us as Africans, we want the West to stay out of our politics. There needs to be some sense of autonomy to what you're doing. Every continent needs to know that you are, first of all, concerned about the people. Do we want to start to look at the various conflicts that has broken out in various parts of the world, the escalation of the crisis in Afghan and how the US left that zone and left it shattered? Trump might not do anything better, but he had so much narrative working for him. It was not under him that the Russian-Ukrainian crisis started. It was not under him that the Middle East is currently going into flames. So
there are lots of other, I mean, that's the other big thing we need to get on to talk about, is about the impact on peace and war. You know, when we come on to talk about Gaza and the Middle East, next item, we'll address that. So maybe we can come back to you. Susan, as an American citizen, you're depressed, you said. What's your analysis for what happened?
Sorry, I had a call. I'm getting surgery soon. It was a doctor. Okay. But anyways, yeah, you know, what I have been doing for the last 3 or 4 months, I've been listening to a right-wing radio station an hour a day.
Oh my God.
Because a lot of my good friends are Trumpettes, I call them. And I just was trying to understand, and Lester's right, they do a lot by emotion. And I agree that we're not ready for a woman. And then to factor in, you know, she had a father, I heard by one of my right-wing friends that was a Marxist. And she supported, they say, abortion up to 9 months, which they keep refuting. And there was so much rhetoric about abortion, but I think that the majority of people wanted to hear more about the economy, not encompassing the fact that they inherited the whole COVID crisis and some of the mismanagement there, and that affected our economy. And even though job reports have been good and stock market, people have selective thinking about all that. And the right wing, my God, when they heard some commentaries on TV say from the left wing that Kamala's got it made because a lot of white men don't vote as opposed to women. And that was all over the radio station saying, they're saying you white men don't vote. Let's prove them wrong. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they do the same thing with young people. And there was a lot of fear-based rhetoric in it, but also a lot of humor, a lot of down-to-earth stuff, a lot of that Trump was spared from the assassination and that the flag had the configuration of an angel. And that when he got up and put up his fist, they said, when the going gets tough, somebody with his traits that the tough get going is what we need now. And he never had a war, and he's going to get us out of war. and he's going to drill, baby, drill. So we will pay off all our debts and we will excel. All those kind of rhetoric. I think really the southern states and then those swing states, you know, although I was surprised Kamala got as many votes as she did. And also, it's too bad Biden did run again initially, because we could have had a Democrat candidate that had a lot of concrete plans specifically about the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's very good. Thanks for that folksy snapshot of what's going on in the American mind. Yes, I think I do actually blame Biden quite a lot. He should never have announced himself as a candidate. And the Democratic Party should have had like a choice. Like in Britain, when we want a new Labour Party leader, there's a process you follow, and the MPs get a vote, and it's decided democratically. I don't understand why the Democrats didn't go for that. Then the candidate would have had more legitimacy, and they might have chosen someone that they, you know, could have defeated this Trump phenomenon. But
I think the time factor, and also that she took Walz thinking that he would really relate like Trump did to that other class.
Yeah, but probably should have taken the Pennsylvania guy instead,
Right.
with
Shapiro.
hindsight. I've just got one thought, sort of one intellectual observation to make about the rhetoric I've heard from America. And I'm speaking from France, where we invented the idea of left and right as a political measurement tool. It's a very, inexact measurement tool, right? And so I apologize. And this is my attempt to make up for it. I think what's happened with the American rhetoric on the street is that by calling Dr. Harris, a Marxist, I mean, the guy's a centrist. He's a Keynesian. He's a Labour Party centre-left kind of thinker, as is Kamala Harris, right? But what I think the American street has done, led by Steve Bannon and co., is shift left-right axis way over. So what they define as the centre is now what we would call right-wing. Anything that's vaguely socialist, they call hard left, which is simply factually incorrect. And I mean, what we have to do intellectually is shift the actual axes back to where they belong. The center should be the center, and the left is, the center left kind of Labour Party, Keynes, Jimmy Carter, the old Democrat tradition, which I think Biden represented in a sense. And then the right we should call out the right for what they are, which is hard right-wing neo-fascists, But so what they've done is they've skillfully shifted the center ground over to the right. So they've legitimized that hard right-wing fascism. It's been done to some extent in India as well, the same kind of rhetoric. Anyone that's in the Congress party is called out as a sort of Marxist terrorist, virtually, by BJP. And it's also been done in Netanyahu's Israel in the same way. And I detect this is an international thing that we're up against. So we just, I'm just saying we need to put our thinking caps on and shift it back to where it really belongs. But anyway, that's enough on America. I think, let's wait for time to. Do you want to add something, Sean? Go for it. You'll have to unmute.
Thanks, Thomas. I know we want to move on now. Right? Just the thing about the IQ, I want to say IQ was evenly spread over population. So that quote that you had at the beginning
is spurious. Okay.
It is, yeah. But just from a peace point of view and a world global peace point of view, does it make much of a difference who won that election? Because both parties are fully war committed. They're war parties, and Trump is he's the least war committed of the two people running for that office. So I'm not sure how significant it is. I mean, if you take the American election, and the one thing they never mention is the amount of the trillions spent on the military. They just ignore it as a total. I mean, is it an election at all? When the major source of your spending, you don't mention it. I'm just a bit cynical about.
I think you're right.
And I think, and just from our point of view here in Ireland, because we have something similar, but my feeling is that the Republicans didn't win. The Democrats lost it, and they lost it because exactly what you're saying, but maybe from a different angle. That the Democrats shifted the axis of the debate to the left further than the American people wanted it to go, and maybe that's what some of the people have said, and that's just my input. I just wanted to say that the gender ideology is one of the things that the Democrats have moved too far on it by the looks of it, and they've handed the thing back to the Republicans. They'll have to learn they shouldn't blame the white men or the Latinos or whatever. Look at what their own problem. The problem is within the Democratic Party and that ideology that they're promoting. Thanks.
Yeah. Now, I think following on from that, just before we move on, so I think that Biden and the Democrats made a terrible mistake by colluding in Israel's genocide against Gaza and providing weapons. I think this revolted people of conscience in America. I think they lost this election partly because the Muslim vote probably didn't come out, and a lot of people that would have voted for them were alienated. People like Jill Stein couldn't stand down, as the Green Party of Europe asked her to. And I think that was a fatal and strategic error. And I don't know, I mean, is Biden intellectually challenged? I mean, in my opinion, I've been thinking this, that he didn't dare speak out against Israel because he knew that if he did, they would throw all their weight behind a Trump victory, and all the press and media would go about horrible Biden interfering. You know, if he had had the courage, which certainly I would have, I've been there, I would have told Israel, like on about the second week of their mass bombing, look, you can't have any more bombs until you talk peace. You can't just slaughter people. We're not giving you any weapons. But he didn't dare because he thought, oh, no, I can't do that. Trump will get into power. Now, the irony here is by being silent and having no courage to speak up, Trump's got into power anyway. So it's the most ridiculous bargain. If that was what he was thinking, and I can't think of any other reason why he would have allowed and aided a genocide to happen, the very thing that he was afraid of. So it's like he was acting out of fear all along. And then when you act out of fear, the thing you're afraid of happens. He's been terrified of Trump, and look what we've got, more Trump. Anyway, that's just a sort of reflection. Susan, did you want to?
I think that now that the election's done, Biden can take a stand. He can do some executive orders. And I just wanted to say one more thing. One thing that the right don't like is big government. And we have a lot of those agencies to safeguard human rights, but Musk is going to go in there and he's going to get rid of a lot of organizations that regulate him. So with no holds bar to
he'll try
someone like him, it's scary.
Yeah. And then there's the Robert Kennedy
right.
sort of loose chain, the sort of was the virus actually COVID engineered by a lab? I mean, it's gonna that will be interesting to watch, because we actually set up a commission of inquiry into the origin of COVID. And we haven't given a final report yet. I would love to see what Kennedy finds in the files. And I actually quite like this chap. I think he's quite courageous in the way he's exposed the shenanigans of the military industrial complex and the sort of pharmaceutical big pharma. Right. And, you know, so I suspend judgment on what he'll find, but it will be interesting. We'll keep tabs on it, right? Yes, Lester.
I know you're trying to move on. I wanted to make...
Priscilla, welcome, by the way. You're in New York State, aren't you? We're just coming to the end of the America section, so we'll give you the floor in a minute, okay? Yeah.
It is hard to put it in perspective because you know Trump is such an embarrassment and such a terrible person. But you know, about a year into the first Trump administration, I happened to have dinner with an official from the Chinese embassy. He's a former student of a good friend of mine, Chinese professor. And I said, well, I have to ask you, what do you think about Donald Trump? And he said, oh, American presidents come and go, 4 years, 8 years. That's nothing. And he said, we Chinese are very patient. And we think in 100-year, 200-year, 500-year periods of history, and American presidents are just a blip. And I've been trying to remind myself of that in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, it's a good perspective, the Chinese perspective. Yeah, yeah. Can I welcome Priscilla Prutzman, who's very involved with restorative justice? Do introduce yourself quickly and then give us your summary of the election results. What do you think happened?
Yes, hi everybody. I guess I got the time wrong. Sorry, I'm late, and I unfortunately have to go into a high school in the city very shortly to do a restorative circle. So I'm not sure what we'll find there. And last night, I did a reentry circle with formerly incarcerated men and pro-Palestinian people who have been doing a lot of protesting. And I was shocked to see that they really did not like Kamala. So I was the only one in the group who did like Kamala. I mean, I think they didn't vote for Trump. But the reasoning, I learned a lot last night. The Black men were really anti-Kamala because of putting all the Black and Puerto Rican people in jail. You know, so that explains why the vote, you know, there's so many Latinos voted, Latino, not Latina, voted for Trump. And that was really shocking to see that, you know. And I also realized that this was so much about class. It was, terribly about class and education, which is related to class. You know, it was like all the white liberal people voted for Kamala, and basically everybody else, shockingly, even to Trump, voted for Trump. He didn't expect that many people to vote, you know? And I do think the Democratic Party was so blindsided by this, you know, class issue, and Trump somehow in his weird genius got that. And you know, Americans love cowboys and outlaws, you know, and that's what Trump is. He's a cowboy and an outlaw.
Yes.
He really is. And we're like Australia, you know, we're a bunch of misfits over here.
Yeah. I once heard a radio program on BBC Radio 3, the history of America, the colonial America, and all the criminals and gangsters from England were transported to the western frontier, the Appalachians and so on, and became the cowboys.
Yeah, no, we're outlaws.
You are actually outlaws. Yeah. And now you proved it. You've elected a criminal as president.
We have, and over half the country is proud of it, which is like, what?
I know, yeah. Oh well. I think Oscar had his hand up a minute ago. Do you want to come in, Oscar, and introduce yourself?
Yes.
Hello.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And my apologies. This is my first time joining this great Zoom, and I'm unable to join you via video call, but I can assure you that in the days ahead, I'll be in a position to do so. So my name is Oscar Luchinga. I'm joining in from Kenya. I have followed through Thomas Daffern LinkedIn account. I've gotten much interest in the works that I think the conversations that are happening and the discussions, and also connected through Nicolette, who shared also the Zoom link to this session, and just maybe to my contribution to the most recent US election results and its implication to me, first as a Kenyan, and also giving an African perspective. I would say it's one that is majorly on the shifts of the foreign policy and how they do influence our sections of especially the field of peace building and security. There's too much dependence that has been developed towards stabilizing the situation here at the Horn of Africa. And I think it's the similar case that we have in the other major areas of Africa, like in the West, as well as some parts of the Sub-Saharan in large. In relation to peacekeeping missions, you look at the foreign aids that have been too much put under the agencies with the US agencies, and we just now put ourselves in the quagmire of what will really come in place, how slow with the responsiveness, especially in this age of dynamism, that things are very quick in response whenever situations are arising in our given setting. So there's too much to look at that. And then you look at also the consistencies, like as Kenya, I know recently where the president met with the outgoing president and the team, and there were some commitments that were made. So we really have to also try just to look at what will the Trump effect in terms of trying to make these US-Africa initiatives consistent with what already exists. But then I think it's a borrow of what democracy has to offer, and also just try to put it into practice as well in Africa, in the sense of the different perspectives of views, how also the outcomes have come, and also just trying to hear the different perspectives from those who are in the US, and also those of you who are seasoned in this space of how the US has been conducting itself, and also the dynamics of what are the left and what are the rights in this context. So I thank you once again, Thomas.
Yeah, no, thank you,
specifically
Oscar.
in the field of peace and security. So it's a
Good. Okay, well, we're coming to discuss Africa in itself on the agenda a bit later. So, George, you had your hand up very patiently for ages. Did you want to come in at this point? Or do you want to
well, thank you so much. I'm George from Tanzania, and I found an interesting quote from former president of Tanzania, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, about America. And this is what he said, just one sentence. The United States is a one-party state, but with typical American extravagance, they have two of them. So for us, sometimes we wonder, what difference does it make whether it's Republican or Democratic Party? Because maybe we'll discuss about Africa, yes, but Africa is not really on the agenda, of the American administration.
Sadly not, probably. But okay, well, thank you for that. Let's move on and talk about Gaza and the Middle East, and we can, lament the ongoing conflict still. Peace initiatives. I mean, I think what Susan was saying is that now he's got this election defeat. He's got a few weeks in which to turn off the aid budget. Do you think Biden is realistically going to do that? My complaint is, why wasn't this done a year ago? And America's been colluding in this genocide. And I think it's very unintelligent because it's lacking, the nuance of being a peacemaker. So I'm disappointed in America's response to the Middle East. What do other people think? Have you, that? I mean, Israel is now bombing the north of Gaza and continuing to slaughter people. I find this shocking. We've got members who are both Palestinian and Israeli, and they won't come and talk. What more can we do, folks? Deadly silence. Susan.
Well, I don't know if you know that. So when someone has a mother or parents that are Jewish, then Israel will sponsor them to a trip and make them fall in love with Israel. And then they say, this is your second home. They can have dual citizenship. They also, in America, you have the option to serve in the Israeli army or the American. And we need them for that particular geographic area in the Middle East. So there's a whole lot of support for them here. And like someone said, if Biden did anything to oppose that, there'd be no chance for re-election, and he would be criticized highly. I know that Israel just came out with some laws this morning, new ones, besides cutting off all the aid. They're saying that anyone in their area that's Palestinian, Israeli, if they say anything in support of the Palestinians, that they could be exiled back to Gaza. And there's a lot of shakeup this week because of the leak from one of his advisors also. It's just a mess. And I think that a legacy that Biden has the chance to do would be to cut off that aid. But I don't know, because Trump said he is extremely good friends with Netanyahu, and he's going to give it all he needs to finish the job. So,
which is a shocking sentiment. And, you know, if America starts supplying weapons to bomb Iran, for instance, in a few months' time, I mean, we're into very dangerous waters. I just have got one comment to say that I think there's an Islamophobic streak in American culture. We can talk about this, but as a historian, and it goes right back to the days of the first presidents when they sent gunboats to attack the Barbary pirates, quote unquote. And also, I don't know if people know this, but you know John Smith, who founded the colony and was rescued by Pocahontas. He's part of the American, you know, Disney story about great Puritans, blah, 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 John Smith. I've got a film script idea called Before America. It's about John Smith's former life. He was a fighter on the Ottoman Empire front. He served as a mercenary in the Holy Roman Empire's battle with the Ottomans. He hated Islam, and he was captured by them. He spent several years in prison in Istanbul, and then he was rescued because he fell in. It's a great story. It'd make a great film. He fell in love with his slave owner, a woman, Turkish harem person, and he escaped. And he went on horseback across, somehow he got to Ukraine, made it back to Britain, and then volunteered to go on the Mayflower. You know, so all this is before America is founded. And what it means is there's this kind of anti-Islamic streak at the heart of the American dream. John Smith was looking to find a new power that could then defeat Islam by coming round the back. And I think this is, you know, I just put out there, has anyone, did you know that story about John Smith, any of you? Or is that new? And I mean, so when Trump makes anti-Islamic comments, which he did in his last administration, he's going to do it again. And when he says to Israel, you can bomb the hell out of them, that's fine. I think this is anti-Islamic streak, which I think ultimately is a spiritual disease. I don't think one should be against the idea of surrendering to the absolute. As a philosopher, I think it's a very good idea that we should all surrender to the absolute. None of us, apart from maybe Hegel, can truly understand the ways of the absolute, and maybe Shankara as well. So we better surrender. But it's like the American soul's declared war on the idea of surrender. And I see that in the arrogance of the Trump types. So there's a spiritual war going on here. Anyway, there we are. Comments. Elif, did you know that about John Smith fighting the Ottomans? That's your ancestors.
Actually not my ancestors, but currently I live in Turkey, so it's automatically the area, let's say.
Yeah.
I don't belong to anywhere in the earth, by the way. Just some of my ancestors come from Russia, some from Balkan. I was born in USA, so I don't know. I'm a mixture. I'm in love with the African culture, so I will go there next week. So I am a world citizen, but even not a world citizen. So I am not the one. I didn't know about.
Okay, no, I didn't.
I unlearned many earthly perspectives because when I studied at the university, political science, then business administration, I saw something that the old constructs were no longer enough to understand the new world. So we were at point A and the world was point B, and we were on a line trying to understand the world with the old constructs. We needed a point C, and I'm searching for the point C. You can say it is irrational, it is spiritual, whatever there is no label for it. You can say it cosmic, but I am searching for that. And that's why I do channeling. About the US thing, just as an example, I'm not going to get into details because I knew Trump was going to win. I told you, Thomas.
Sure.
You know that. It is, for instance, transit astrological charts of persons, and also the astrology charts of the countries, when the countries were born. When they put them together, it's called an analysis of synastry, and it is a fact together proven by statistics. It's not, you know, mumbo jumbo thing only. You can see with the transit charts what's going to happen on that election day for that person in that country. You can make some predictions, but these are not deterministic predictions. These are likelihoods. But if they are studied very nicely, like Elon Musk is very, he's studying everything, and he's using everything as a social experiment. Okay, and he's gathering data. He's not only making media, not only, you know, manipulating, whatever you may call it, or leading, let's say, but he's playing on something which is not rational, which old stories were trying to understand everything rational. Okay, is it race? Is it, no. Rational things are the things you see with your eyes. Irrational things are subconscious, and decision-making process is on the subconscious. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with abortion. These are red herrings from the game theory. And I think Americans, most of the also world population, is manipulated by elements of game theory, very much, and they cannot get out of the box. This is true for Middle East. This is true for Africa. This is true for anything on the agenda. So what I'm trying to explain to the people in the, you know, media, whatever I can get as a media, it's also very limited for such people to say something, because everybody try to put a label, but they understand when things get tough, as Susan says, okay? When they fail to understand, and I don't want to use the fail, when they have limited capacity to understand. I didn't know about John Smith, sorry, Ottomans, this is a different story. Yes, there is something against Islamophobia, Islam, which I find it right, because there is in general something against religions, which is I say it's right, because religions are, again, values of the old world and old constructs. You cannot explain anything because there are new equations, and these are different, you know, outdated variables.
Well, they're old channeling, shall we say, but I think, you know, the question we need to look at, and we can't solve it in this one call, is how can new thinking come into an old world which has got all these old religions like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, which is one of the oldest, and Hinduism and so on? How can we update these old channelings so that they reflect more global spiritual and peace agenda? Because a lot of these channelings are quite
you can find common grounds, what they are talking about. Actually, this is so simple.
Well, that's what I've been doing, trying to do commentaries. That's why I spent 10 years doing a commentary on the Quran and on the Gospels, you know. But
that's what I like about it. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. So
okay, thank you. Look, Elif, let's move on to Sean. He's got his hand up very patiently for 5 minutes.
Okay, Sean. I didn't.
Sean, do come in there. What was it you were saying?
Thanks, Thomas. Just on the Israeli.
Let's get back to Gaza, please.
Okay.
I have one idea. I have an idea. Some of the peace movements are doing it, and I think maybe we should, or you should, write a letter to the International Criminal Court. They have shamed themselves by refusing to issue the warrant that their own prosecutor asked them in May. Their 3 chief prosecutors asked them to issue a warrant against the Prime Minister of Israel for war crimes. Now, when the same thing happened with Russia, they issued the warrant within 3 weeks. the judges, if judges cannot issue that warrant, it really is another nail in the coffin of any kind of international law, humanitarian law. So I just thought we could write a short letter, Thomas.
Sure, we could do that as wife. Could you draft it, Sean? Because you've got the passion. Draft it.
Yeah.
I'll tweak it, and I'm happy to sign it and send it. Yes. It's just, the whole thing is just so tragic. And as a philosopher, it's like my right and my left arm are fighting each other and trying to tear each other off. You know, I love the Jewish religion, the people of Israel, the Hebrew tradition, which is very complex. You know, there are subtle differences between being Jewish, which is just one tribe of Israel, or being of the tribes of Israel, or being Hebrew, which is before Jacob. Jacob was the guy that rechristened himself Israel, and that was an initiatory shamanic name he got by wrestling with God. This is in the Bible, right? I mean, so dear old Jacob is to blame for a lot. But bless him, he was just a shaman who happened to meet, you know, angelic forces, and like all shamans out on the hills. And so we've got to unthink all this at root, is what I believe. Let's keep going. You know, we can't give up now. And George knows that I did a paper on how Africa fed into a lot of these traditions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, had huge links to Egypt, especially. In a sense, they're all offshoots of Egyptian monotheistic thought. And therefore, it's you know, it behooves all of us to try and get this war finished and not join the kind of, you know, the jingoistic, let's join a side and bash the other side. We're all on all sides simultaneously, in my opinion. Okay, let's move on and look at the Ukraine-Russia thing, because that's not gone away. And of course, this might impact hugely because Trump, I don't think Zelensky is his favorite guy. This is a grudge. There's been some new scientific research. Crows hold revenge thoughts for 17 years. A crow, if you fall out with it, will stalk you and bomb you. I think you know, Trump might be a bit of a crow and go for Zelensky and cut off aid to Ukraine. So how do we feel about that? Is this you know, I mean, it's I feel sad for the poor Ukrainian people because, but on the other hand, if we can get a peace deal and end the war, you know, what's going to happen there? Do you think, Dr. Mishra? You've not spoken for a while. What's your take on Russia, Ukraine, and the, you know, I know Modi has been visiting, hasn't he? He's been to Petersburg to meet, and he's sort of tried to mediate. What's the news in, how's the election result happening in India? What's the press saying?
Well, I shouldn't say much about the election in India, but in the context of what happened in elections in the United States,
yeah,
one thing as a scientist I have started looking at is perhaps world is ready to ignore the tyranny that an administration is undergoing, because nobody looked at what happened in the past 4 years during the presidency of Trump. The Capitol incidents was shame to the world. But American people are educated people mostly. I used to think that in democracy, because Indian people are not so highly educated, therefore trend is different in elections. But looking at the trend that happened in America, I feel disappointed that they will go by emotion and they think they can remain leader of the world. Emotional person cannot be leader of the world. So as a scientist, I look at there is a loss of democratic values in whatever way it happened. I'm not commenting on that, but certainly what happened is going to set a new trend. A new trend in the way that in India it happens, that who have committed crime, they are popular and they are elected. And I never thought that this will happen in America. So what happened in America is almost telling a story that the world will welcome a tyrannical person at the cost of what they expect on the morality of life. This is what is going to happen. Next 4 years perhaps will teach us a lesson that what happens. But in general, democracy is at danger. And I used to think that that the democracy gives chance to rule the full persons. But in America, this doesn't apply. They are all well above average, highly educated, well informed, well aware. But when it comes to electing a person who can be acceptable leader, different thing happens. So I'm quite disappointed on that. The second point that you raised about Ukraine and Russia, I personally feel that this was a game of economy. And perhaps American peoples weighed Biden administration down on this aspect because nobody was making any efforts for peace. It was just going on aiding somebody who is fighting. And therefore it was disgusting. To my mind, now things will settle very soon because Zelensky will come to terms and the NATO power will be reduced and there will be better chance for peace in the world in that region, Ukraine, Russia. That's my feeling. What happens, we have yet to see, because the kind of actions that will come from United States will determine the chance of peace in Russian-Ukraine region. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, very clear points there. Thanks for making them. Does anyone else want to add anything about? We might as well discuss the BRICS event. It took just place in Kazakhstan. Russia's got this, so India was there, Brazil, and the BRICS thing has got a new bunch of members. It's quite interesting. They've issued a declaration and stuff, calling for peace in the world under UN auspices. So they're not anti-UN. What they're anti is the US monopoly of power. So I'm not sure. I haven't been able to find online the BRICS declaration. I looked for it before this meeting. Has anyone else read it? I know they issued something. But I did see a summary. Susan, did you read it?
No, I didn't read it, but when I lived in China, I heard a lot about BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And I know there's Ethiopia. A lot of them want to be in it because, and they've been trying to get rid of the dollar as their currency. They want an alternative one because they feel victimized by the dollar value. China's been working hard to build infrastructures between all those Asian countries. So they actually have very low tariffs and they do business with each other as opposed to United States. And that's hence the interest also in Africa, knowing all the natural resources there and helping them build their infrastructure that way. So I think that BRICS is a very valuable organization.
Yeah,
but I don't know what the latest.
Yeah, no, I'll find the declaration for the next meeting, but you can look online. So I was interested in Dr. Mishra's optimistic view. I mean, maybe it's one of the few good things that'll come out of Trump, which is finally the Russian and Ukrainian lot will have to have peace talks and do some deals,
Yeah.
That's your hope. Yeah.
But I may also add, Thomas, that BRICS meeting, in general, I'm making this statement, was more biased to be in a polarized group rather than taking any stand and making it a neutral body. So at the moment, all over the world, there is a more inclination to align with groups. That's what all at world level political leaders are searching for. So I think BRICS could have been more positive and more strong in making statements, other than just the currency factor. The currency factor will follow if you have a noble administration, a strong administration, and administration oriented to welfare of people. The other things follow it in general. So I will again look for that the peace factor has to be the key point of all discussions that will follow in the years ahead.
Yeah, there's lots of important things there. Just to say, I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Middle East, again, the one good thing Trump did last time when he was in power was he did launch this peace plan for Gaza and Palestine with Netanyahu. It was a document which I actually commented on. It was a 100-page document. I went through it with a fine-tooth comb and I published a critique of it. It wasn't enough, it wasn't, but at least it was something. And had Israel and Palestine taken it seriously, sat down and thrashed it out, we wouldn't have had this horror war that's going on. Palestine was offered an airport near East Jerusalem, a port to be built offshore off Gaza, and all kinds of economic aid. I mean, Trump's idea was to make Palestine a viable state with funding. And looking back on that document, I just wish the world had taken it more seriously and read my commentary, which was to say this is 60% a good document, and now we can improve it and tweak it. Instead, we've had absolute horrors. So I expect Trump will probably try and revive a version of that and go back to the drawing board. He was inspired by his son-in-law, who's a Jewish guy. That's at least, so that's, again, a slightly hopeful sign, what he's up to. Can we welcome Amena? You've joined us. Sorry for the confusion with timing. We started at 6 p.m. French time. And I know I said 7 p.m. in my last email. I apologize for that, but you'll be able to catch up. Yeah.
Yes. I'm so sorry. I apologize also. I did see your latest email this morning that said 7 p.m. Paris time. So I
know, but the Zoom was set
an hour
for 6.
early. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, don't worry, you can make up for lost time. And let's welcome Morag as well, and Huaye. Do you want to just introduce yourself quickly, Amena, and tell us what you make of the election results and how you are, etc. How will it impact your work to build a peace, ministry?
Yes. Well, first of all, hello to everyone, and I'm so glad to be here with you all as always. It's been an exhausting, nail-biting few months, I would say, for me. It was, I know a lot of people have found it, especially Democratic voters, found it shocking. For me, it wasn't a big surprise just because of what I've witnessed in the way the Democrats run the campaign. The Harris campaign was run in the last few months leading to it. It wasn't a surprise as they were missing some. I didn't think they were that much in touch with the electorate and what the base wanted, especially the progressive end of the Democratic base, the young people, college students, Muslim and Arab Americans, and so many really solid fractions of the base was completely ignored. It's not like they didn't have warnings from these groups, but they did with the protests and all the everything that they protested, but it wasn't heard by the Democratic Party, and the Harris campaign didn't. Instead of listening to, delivering to people on what matters to them, to have a more, in my opinion, a more economically populist agenda to address the people who, the working people, the blue collar workers, the people who live in rural America, which basically lashed out against the Democratic Party. Even counties that were blue before they were Democratic, they went on the Trump side, and out of rage, really, against feeling invisibilized by the Democratic Party. And so there was a lot of mistakes that were made. And of course, on the issue of Gaza, huge mistakes were made there. And she needed to distance herself from Biden's policy on that clearly. And she didn't do that, although her rhetoric was softer. And that at some point when she first took over, or she was first appointed, really people didn't vote. She was kind of appointed as the nominee without getting a single vote from the voters. I was hopeful initially, just giving her rhetoric. But of course her actions didn't follow, and she went exactly the same way that Biden went on this issue, which was not popular with people. And so I think that was also a factor that costed them. And had she done, more focused on the economy, things that matter to the American people, to the working class, and also on this issue of Gaza and foreign policy, if she took a more humane policy stance, a solid policy stance, not just words, that would have, I think, changed things to a whole other direction. And those are the mistakes they made, and I'm sure they're going to come out as usual and blame the voters, blame Trump, blame everybody else, but there's no one else to blame that they ran they didn't listen to the voters. And it was not shocking to me in all of that. And to be honest with you, instead of on the Gaza thing, what was shocking to me was that instead of addressing the issues of the Democratic progressive side, the young people's voices, she campaigned with Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney instead. So not only she
Playing
didn't
up to the right.
prioritize peace.
Yeah,
exactly.
You were pretending to be more right wing than the Republicans, which is just bonkers.
That's right. Well, it was a wrong. I don't know how she took that advice from the consultants and the amount of money that they had, but it was just mind-boggling to me. And all of those indications to me said that, okay, they're handing this to Trump. So it was not a surprising thing for me to see this. But
it may not be surprising, but it still is shocking. But anyway, and also I think the lack of a peace policy, any enunciation of that, is a constant problem, not just in America but in world politics. And we'll talk in a minute when we come to talk about Britain. But I've got some good news from the British Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, about a peace policy, which I'll share in a minute. Yes, can we just welcome Morag from the UK, joining us from Scotland. Hello, Morag. We've been, we started at 6 p.m. Paris time. I'm sorry about that. The times are muddled. And Huawei, could you introduce yourself, please? I'm not sure quite. I don't recognize that name. It's a Chinese mobile phone, I believe.
I'm not sure what this phone is. My daughter got me it.
Hello, Morag. Yeah, hi, greetings.
Hi, been away for a while. I was kind of living in a theatre bubble. I got a wee bit fed up of news and doom and gloom, and everywhere I looked, it was like the world just seemed to be going to hell in a handbasket. So I put myself in a little theatre bubble instead and performed opera this summer. And then I went back to the 1200s where I lived as a Viking for 3 weeks. It was great. It was lovely. It was wonderful.
Great.
So that's what I've been up to. But back to it, and back to fighting for the freedom of Scotland and hopefully the rest of us. Back to uni, back to fighting for peace, and back to reality, as they say.
Back to Glasgow, yeah. Good. Well, thank you, Morag, for joining us. And Pyrrhus has just joined us as well from Athens. Pyrrhus, hello. We've been going for an hour. I'm sorry, I got the time wrong. You're the second batch coming in. But can you introduce yourself, Pyrrhus? Can you hear us? there's probably a time delay going down to Athens. There's a lot of Balkans to get through. But anyway, so Pyrrhus Mercouris is joining us from Athens. That's great. Okay, let's move on. I did mention, by the way, in my agenda, the Nobel Prize winners, who are the wisest or cleverest sort of peace thinkers on the planet. They have a standing commission that's based in South Africa, in fact, which we could liaise with. I was thinking of writing to them and say, you know, these are intellectuals who are famous for their peace commitments and stuff. Maybe we should reach out to them and say, what can you help us with the joined up thinking that we need for a peaceful world? Because if anyone can do it, surely it's the Nobel Peace Prize winners, who come from all cultures, all traditions. They've started being more imaginative in awarding these Nobel Peace Prizes. There was a time they just gave them to grey-haired, retiring politicians in suits, but now they're giving them to actual peace activists, thank God, all around the world. So if anyone wants to help me with that, we can reach out. I was also going to talk about the Delphic Games and Morag taking refuge in the arts. I mean, maybe we need to move in the direction of the arts to refresh our souls, because politics is always a disappointing business. Somebody's always going to lose wherever you stand in politics. You know, it's like football. It's a zero-sum game. Somebody is always going to lose here. So whereas the arts, we all win. You know, if you go to a brilliant Shakespeare performance, everybody comes out with a transformed soul, or a great opera, or a great bit of music. So that's what the Delphic Games are about. I'm the coordinator of the Delphic Academy. Elif, who's joined us from Turkey, is also on the board, and so is Pyrrhus, who's joined us from Athens. What we're trying to do is network for artists, cultural figures, musicians, poets, dancers, theatre people, to create, ultimately, you see, a beautiful, meaningful world can be created by the arts in a way that politics can't do, in my humble opinion. So anyone that wants to help, get involved, join us. You know, we want to engage with different cultural perspectives on the arts in Africa and China. We have a meeting coming up with a chap based in Austria who's got a, he's developing a sort of Silk Road for ideas, coming into, you know, a connection between Europe and China and stuff. So anyone with links to artists, poets, theatre people, please get involved. Susan, yeah, hello.
Oh yeah, I do. There's a tribal group in Uganda that I help fundraise for. What they do is identify kids from poor villages or street children, have no families, and they teach them music. They teach them how to dance or sing or play musical instruments, and they perform at weddings, the traditional dances. And they are always looking for links to be able to share and spread what they do in their music and dance. I have videos of them and all kinds of stuff.
Well, there we are. That we should. Is this in Uganda, you were saying?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's put me in touch, and we can, you know, liaise. And we've already had some Delphic Games once in South Africa some time ago. Nelson Mandela was a patron of the Delphic Games. So, you know, there's a legacy of 30 years work. We're into the 30th anniversary of the Delphic Games, which, for those that don't know, it used to run in parallel to the Olympic Games back in classical times. The Delphic Games took two years after the Olympic Games, and they ran for 1,000 years. And they included the great artists, poets, musicians of ancient classical world. And we've revived them. I didn't. I'm a new boy. It was a German guy called Christian Kirsch in Berlin who had the idea to revive them. And over the last 30 years, they've had several of these games. We're now trying to organize a new one. And I'm the sort of intellectual wing of it. I'm going to write a book about the history of the Delphic Games because it's really interesting. And by the way, this is an interesting little news fact. Tragically, the Delphic site burned down in the 4th century BC, and all the archives were destroyed and burned. So we don't know who were the winners, like in 800 BC or whatever, you know, who won the poetry prize in 500 BC. All the archives went up in flames. And guess who they invited to come in and see if he could retrieve anything? Anyone know? Hands up. A pupil of Plato, I'll just say that, whose anniversary of his death was celebrated today. Who was the best pupil of Plato? Pyrrhus.
Aristotle.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Aristotle was actually invited to go to Delphi and like ferret around and see if he could find anything of the archives surviving the fire. And so I'm going to document all this in the book because this is interesting stuff, you know, because when you study classical history, you always learn the wars and who fought who. And you don't hear so much about the music, the theatre, even though the Greeks invented theatre, for God's sake. And they invented dialectic, you know, the Socratic debates. Those are part of the Delphic Games. We want the great philosophers of the world to come and compete and, you know, right versus left and, you know, let the best one win kind of thing. So anyway, that's some good news, I think. Pyrrhus, do introduce yourself. Are you in Athens at the moment?
I am in Athens at the moment, and I'm Pyrrhus Mercouris. I'm a care worker. I work with migrant unaccompanied minors from developing countries who are here illegally. And I also work for an online publication. I work as an editor. Plus, I do European projects. I write them and disseminate them. And I may be assisting in a rather good project relating to how migration brings ideas and theories and religions and legends and myths. And that could be interesting.
Will that be a pan-European project? You'll work across different...
It'll be another an application to Erasmus, which is what I've been trying to see how we can get in that, you know, as a world peace, always looking for that opportunity, because that's one of the things that I do. And I've not been very successful because, unfortunately, the European Union doesn't seem to understand the importance of gardens or Hippocrates and things like that.
Yeah, because we also work with the World Peace Gardens Network, which is another offshoot.
Yeah, they don't seem to understand the importance of culture. The connection between education and culture is taken for granted. And when I did some years ago working with the Israeli Antiquities Authority, the Palestinian workshop, and in another European project, I was actually tasked on writing a good practice manual on the connection of culture and education. And that was really good work. But, so we tried to take it further. But again, the European Union is a bit of a mule-headed up beast, and trying to get them to understand, look, you've started something, keep the momentum going. Well, you lost the momentum. But we could pick it up. We could pick it up. I mean,
I'd love to see that document if you've still got a copy on education culture.
Sure. There were four good practice manuals I had to write. One of them was on site management. A second was on town and country planning and the heritage. And the fourth was on copyrights.
Oh, thrilling stuff. Thrilling stuff.
In the online, and there was really good project.
Well, no, that's great. That sort of moves us on seamlessly to the next item on the agenda, which is this European Union mediation service I've been bashing on about for a long time. And I wrote to the then, you know, leaders of the European Union suggesting they create this thing as a formal standing structure within the EU. If only they had, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in, because that body would be created to mediate conflicts on its borders, like Ukraine, like Israel-Gaza, which is sort of on the borders of the Mediterranean. So trying to get the EU to create a mediation service is one of my missions for this life. So anyone wants to help, we need a European Union member state to say, we want this. And it could be a small one like Lithuania or Estonia or, you know, something like that, Malta. And I think it's in everyone's interest that the European Union doesn't go down the route of trying to become a military power, because that's ridiculous. The whole EU was created after the end of World War II, and we saw that war isn't the answer. We've got to get back to its vision as a peace project, I think. So, Pyrrhus, if you want to help me write a funding thing for that.
Yeah, definitely. However, I don't want to I don't want to dampen your enthusiasm.
Thank you, thank you. No, I like. I'll stay in my bubble of optimism. Yes. Yes. Great. Okay, let's move on to hear from Sean, the Lex Innocentium. We've been talking about having some kind of follow-up academic conference to this. What's the pros and cons of that, Sean, and how do you see that happening? And tell us the success, because you had a fantastic launch, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And everyone, very briefly, I put the reference to the website on the chat so people can have a look at, because it does, the website is very comprehensive, the first page of it. We did launch very successfully. We're just a very small peace initiative at one level, another level because there are so many other peace initiatives around, but we hope to work with a lot of the other peace organizations just to contribute in our small way. The idea, should we have a follow-up academic conference? I'm talking to Thomas about that, and it probably would be next year. And we probably would have it on Zoom and in person as well. I think that's probably the best, but at some stage we can go into more detail. I'm with Thomas in the background. The law is up and running. It's a people's law, and anyone can sign it online. And some people here have signed it. And if you sign it, you can download a certificate to say that you have signed this law, a people's law, which outlaws war. And what we're hoping to do eventually is get a significant number of people from different countries and then maybe take it to the European Parliament or something, but that's way down the line. At the moment, we just want people to read the law, agree with it, and sign it. Thanks.
Yes, and for those that aren't familiar with it, the original thing was signed in 697 AD in a place called Birr in Ireland, and it was the idea, a brainchild of the abbot of Iona, Saint Adomnan, who was a descendant of St. Columba, and he was a Christian philosopher, thinker, activist. We'd call him a peace activist. And he was fed up with the wars in Ireland, where they used to slaughter all the women and children. These men would go bonkers and, kill the women and children. And so he said, enough is enough, made all the princes of all the different parts of Ireland come together and sign this law, which they said, okay, we will stop killing the women and children and the non-combatants, like the cooks and stuff. And miraculously, it was passed, 697. And the killings sort of went down. What Sean and his group have said is it's time to revive that, but in a bigger way now, Lex Innocentium for the 21st century, because in the wars that are going on now, they've forgotten this. They're killing and slaughtering the women and children and the non-combatants. There's no distinction anymore in the bombing of Gaza or, Ukrainian cities and stuff. So the Irish have made a stand, and let's join them, is what I would say. And the point of an academic conference, I think, is important, because what we need to do is cover all the time since 697. There are many questions like, how can we say that its impact was such and such? Which historians have studied that? We can also look at other cultures like Islam, which had a similar kind of thing. They had in the laws of jihad, you're not supposed to kill innocents in Islam. It's anti-Islamic. And the whole idea of Islamic terrorism is a non-Islamic concept. It was not dreamed up inside Islam. It was dreamed up in the West and then imposed on Islam as foot soldiers for the Cold War in Afghanistan. It's totally anti-Islamic to kill innocents. So we want to get some Muslim scholars talking about that. And is there a similar thing in Judaism, that you don't kill innocents? There is actually, but we need to get some rabbis and stuff to come and talk about that. Unfortunately, the great Michael Lerner, the great progressive rabbi, who wrote a book called Revolution of Love, who's just died, or he could have spoken. He was, Moses on the job, so to speak, a great man. And that book is well worth reading, The Revolution of Love. But, you know, so anyway, that's... Any comments? Who here has signed that Lex Innocentium? Do you want to put your hand up? Yeah. Elif, yes, you signed it when you were here, I think. Well done.
I haven't seen it.
Good. The link, I can't see it in chat, Sean. Could you put the website in chat?
Yes, yeah, I won't put the website in because there's a good bit in it, but if people are interested, go to the website because I know your agenda, there's a good few more things on the agenda. We have,
just put it in chat because I know it's something like, what is it? www.lexinnocentium.
21stcentury.ie. I put it in now. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on and talk about. Now, we were going to have a report from Gevork from Armenia. He normally comes. He sent his apologies. He has been in Dublin recently at an education meeting. But you didn't manage to see him, Sean, did you, sadly?
I was down the country when he was here, but we did kind of meet up. I left him as a present, and he gave me a present.
Okay.
So that was...
You had a vicarious meeting, but anyway, he couldn't come today because he's got some educational work he's doing. But I don't know. Has anyone followed the Georgia election? There's a sort of split, isn't there, in Georgia's society between you know, pro-Europe, pro-Russia. And I think the pro-Russia lot won. What's happening in Georgia? Is that all peacefully done? I hope. I mean, there's no sort of fighting on the streets of Georgian cities, I hope. Pyrrhus, are you in touch with that?
Only a little bit, because I mean, the person that serves me in my shop, she's a Georgian.
Ah.
And so I know a little bit through her, but she's got rather a dim view of everybody. As far as she's concerned, they're all oligarchs, they're all gangsters, and bring back the Soviet Union. That's her thing. Okay, so that's
a view.
Yeah, that's her view. You know, it wasn't like that when Joseph Stalin was around. I mean, that's her viewpoint.
He was a Georgian too. Yeah.
So the answer is I don't know what's going on in Georgia.
Okay, well, we'll hear from Gevork next time. I've just been working, just to say, on my 99 Names of Peace project, and I did do Georgian. And each time I researched a language, I also look into the culture and history and literature. Georgia's a fascinating place with the ancient, you know, crossroads of culture. It has an ancient, you know, pagan, pre-Christian kind of past, as does Armenia. And these are all very interesting. And I hope that, and what I'm doing in each language is finding words for peace, peace building, peacemaking, mediation, conflict resolution. And then, you know, hopefully this will be published by Christmas. So that's exciting. Okay, let's move on. We don't have anyone from Bulgaria, do we? There's a colleague who attends sometimes. Okay, so let's move on and look at Africa, because we've got a few people here who might report back. George, tell us what you've been up to on the African front. And you're like a single-handed whirlwind of peace activity. How's it going?
Well, yeah, thank you so much. In fact, it's not single-handed. I've been working with, some people like Lester Kurtz. And of course, I can also mention, of course, Kaushala Mishra here, Sean English, yourself, of course, in this Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we formed a network for the promotion of peace and sustainable development in Africa, but also around the world. And we are online every Wednesday for 90 minutes, just like a football match. And each time we've got an interesting topic. We invite scholars from all over the world. And so far we've organized 144 webinars and every Wednesday. So, and we've got actually already now published 2 books The recent one just came out, actually last month, was it, or this month? It's just brand new. It's called Peace as Nonviolence, Topics in African Peace Studies, co-edited by Lester Kurtz, who is here, and Egon Spiegel in Germany, and Liu Cheng in China. And the previous one was Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, also edited by the same people. And we've got our fourth book coming up next year, or going to plan. And this one will be a special book actually based on these webinars that we've organized so far. And I think this is what we're going to keep on working on in the future. So publications, and we are also planning also to have an international conference, maybe in 2026. So when everything is ready, I will send you a call, and of course, I'll be happy to have you talk, as you did, of course, also in the other conference that we had in May, Thomas. That was a coalition of peace-building networks in Africa that took place in person in Tanzania, but also online. And the theme was Ubuntu, Ujamaa, New Pan-Africanism, and the Future of World Peace. So, yeah, and we've got also a WhatsApp group, and we invite you, like to invite you, whoever is interested in this, so that we can also keep on the conversations on peace building, you know, online. So we discuss various issues. So you are all welcome, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks.
Could we participate in that Wednesday?
Yes, it's open.
You can.
Sure.
What's the link? Can you send it, Thomas?
Put your email into chat, George, and then she can email you and get the invite.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Okay. And Fisayomi, have you been to these Wednesday meetings before? I think you have you?
I have been to one, but I stopped getting notifications or emails about it. And the link I had, I tried using it, so it wasn't taking me to the meeting, and that's how I lost touch with what the meeting is.
Well, when George puts his email in chat, please email him and get on the list, because every week there's someone. I try and come as much as I can, but I'm busy and can't make them all, but they're brilliant. And my only slight grumble is, please create a YouTube channel just for these things in the name of the Africa Peace Studies Network, and put them all on there, because at the moment they're difficult to find, and it's not that difficult to do that. You must surely have a student, PhD student, who can do it for you. That's my only observation, because we can't all make them live, but we could watch them during the week. You know, just
sure. Great point. We will. Yeah, we're working on that, Thomas. Thanks.
Excellent.
In fact, we are already there. We were there, but for some reason we couldn't continue, live streaming them. But we want to get back to that. Thank you.
Yeah, don't bother about live streaming. That's all just nonsense. No, just record the damn things and stick them on the YouTube channel later. That's how it's done. Right. And then it's there as an archive for everyone when they can.
Excellent.
Have time. I have a question, since you're the editors. The paper I did on Africa and like intellectual history and stuff, is that going to, which volume do you want that to be published in? Is that?
It's in the next one. In the next one on webinars.
Okay, so that will be in volume 4.
Yes, I'll keep you posted.
Okay, because excellent. Okay, well, let me know how that's going, because I'm kind of straining at the leash. I want to publish it, you know, sooner rather than later. So if that's not going to be published for like another 4 years, then I might try and publish it somewhere else, you know, in a journal or something.
Well, actually, it's we expect it to be sent to the publishers actually even this year, and then it will come out next year.
Okay.
Early next, right? Okay.
Well, no, I just think it's quite important news that needs to get out there, you know.
Right. Thanks.
Okay. Right. Now we've got to discuss Britain. That's on the agenda. And I said I had some good news about David Lammy, who I think is a very good foreign secretary. So I've sent the document to Shaw, but I had a long discussion with someone that works in the Foreign Office. It's now called the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, because they've realized development is part of this package. And I've written a document called, the potential for peace policy in the FCDO. And I've pointed out that this phrase peace policy is non-existent in the halls of academia and in the halls of foreign offices around the world. Nobody talks about a peace policy. They talk about military policy, defense policy, security policy, economic policy, blah, blah, blah. And yet the ugly duckling or the Cinderella at the ball is peace policy. Until we have a peace policy, we will never get peace on this planet. So I've got this link through to David Lammy's, inner cabinet. The document has been sent. I'm waiting for a phone call to go to London and present it in person. That's what I hope, fingers crossed. And I'll wear a suit and tie and, all that stuff. Because to me, it's just logical. I mean, what the hell are these guys doing? Why haven't we got a peace policy centre going in London? And Sean was saying that document could be tailored to other nations. Like you could rejig it and send it to the Irish, couldn't you? Sean, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, yeah, that's it's a very good outline, Thomas. Thanks very much for doing it. And when I was reading it, I just thought it's ideal for as a basic document that we could just change around for each country. So maybe you should promote it to everyone here.
Well, yes, anyone like we've got India, Tanzania, America on this call. I mean, Greece. I mean, I would like to see peace policy thinking going on in all these countries. And I don't see why not. And it's like a huge industry to do security or military policy. Well, that's fine. I'm not saying they all have to lose their jobs, but somebody should be doing peace policy thinking. And that's why I've supported Amena's idea and the idea of a ministry of peace in the US. Amena, do you want to come in at this point?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas, for your support of the DOP. Besides the legislation that we promote, we also wrote multiple letters to the Harris campaign in the past few months, asking for, we understand that in addition to the policy, I know that the white in the US, at least the White House or the office of the president has these advisors that advise them in many different aspects, and to have a peace advisor is something that lacks in the White House. And so all the DOP members have been sending letters to the Harris campaign requesting that she would consider a peace advisor in her office.
Did you get any reply?
We never got any reply, which again goes back to my earlier point, and we're not sure if it even got to her. But we do plan on doing the same with with Trump. Now that he's in office, he talks about somebody who's anti-war, and he did use the word healing this country and healing the world in his. So that gives us that opening to do that. So I just wanted to mention that to ask for advisors that these heads of states typically have, at least in the US, to have a peace advisor, which they never had.
That's good news. Thank you for that. And so anyway, I'm happy to send out this document. It's sort of, it's not secret. I mean, I've sent it to David Lammy, but you're welcome to take it and reword it, rejig it, and put it in your own country's terminology, as it were. The key thing I think I'm promoting is this idea that we should be doing serious joined up thinking about peace policy, because whenever conflicts break out, nobody knows where to go. We don't know how to think of an alternative to just sheer militarism. Think back to Libya and Hillary Clinton. When Libya started to go pear-shaped, all America did was drop bombs, and they had to decide, well, which ones are we going to drop the bombs on? And of course, then that created worse problems than it solved. So bomb dropping is not the solution to bringing peace. We need to have teams of people, educators, development people, mediators going into these conflict zones. And for God's sake, it's the 21st century, you know. Lester.
Yeah, I'd love to see the your peace policy paper, and I really appreciate what Amena is doing. I think also kind of going back to saying earlier, yeah, I've been trying really hard to figure out how to even listen to the Trump people, you know, because I'm so horrified by the election. But you know, I'm this big advocate. One of my favorite stories is Thich Nhat Hanh was asked, "What would you say to Osama bin Laden if you met him face to face?" And he said, "I would listen." So I've been trying to. I mean, if we would listen to Osama bin Laden, we should also listen to Trump. And I remember. Vance came out with a statement a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know that that he has anything written. I should try to follow up on that. But he said he had a plan for ending the war in Ukraine. And it had some interesting points the way it was reported in the New York Times. One was that Ukraine would be neutral; it would not join NATO, which made some sense to me. I mean, I think that this move toward NATO was one of the triggers that gave Putin the rationale for the invasion, and that there would be a demilitarized zone between Ukraine and Russia. Of course, the other problem was, which we should not be surprised, is that Russia would be able to keep the part of Ukraine that it had occupied in the invasion. That's probably the stumbling point. But you know, I have a tendency.
Sorry, can I just clarify? What did Vance say about that? That Ukraine will just have to surrender it forever, or
yeah.
The Ukrainians don't like that bit of the document. You know.
But I'm trying to think of, you know, how do we apply this sort of idea of listening to everybody to also listening to Trump, and to those people whom we deplore. I mean, we deplore the people who, you know, did September 11th. We deplore their actions, right? Again, that's Gandhi. You separate the actions from the people, right? In the actions, but you try to maintain some kind of respect as people for the people. And I'm struggling with that, but I think it's a good lesson. And I'm not sure also of the practical applications, but I think this idea of, well, listening to what Vance had to say about, you know, ending the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Thanks for that. I do subscribe to the New York Times, so I'm going to look up that article. And, you know, it's our duty to reach out proactively and help, in the Platonic sense, to help educate people, welcome them to the academy, which has got to be a place for everyone to meet, whatever their ideas, however outrageous. And we have to use dialectic to then steer them towards some kind of light, which has to be inclusive and everybody wins. That's the point of conflict resolution. It's not like, just a little philosophical point. One of the problems the world's facing is this hyperpolarization that's going on. I've just finished an article on the logic of peace. I've proposed we need to use logic as a discipline within philosophy, which is, you know, profoundly interesting and goes right back to Aristotle and before, and then retool it as a peace tool. So anyway, that article on the logic of peace, and that's about rising above polarization. Our friend Sachin Raja of Canada, who often comes to these calls, has just put out a thing about the election saying you're either elated or you're disappointed. you know, and he's got friends on both sides. And next time round, it might be reversed. The problem is this intense polarization. We have to find a place of wisdom that transcends that. And that, I think, was Hegel's point in his system of logic. We have to go to that transcendental place which incorporates all polarities and oppositions. So, you know, that's a challenge for us. Let's just ask Dr. Mishra, what about India? What's happening in your part of the world? Is Bangladesh all happy and peaceful now they got rid of their leader? No trouble there? You'll have to unmute, Dr. Mishra. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
There you are, yeah.
So that's difficult to say that everything is fine there, but things are not escalating. So they have come to normalization. And I think that with the passage of time, things will come to the normal state.
Isn't the new leader that famous economist chap? Haven't they got a new president who's quite well known?
Yunus, that is Yunus, the Nobel laureate.
Yeah, he's a great economist, isn't he?
Yes, yes.
And now he's the leader of Bangladesh, is that right?
He is the chief advisor of the government.
Oh, okay. He's not the president.
I had the pleasure of meeting him, and I learned what he's doing. He's doing what is called microfinancing.
Yeah.
I was impressed. So at India-Bangladesh border, there is no much serious problem. This much I can tell you.
Good.
But inside Bangladesh, whatever is happening is just coming to calmness slowly. And I think in weeks ahead, next weeks, things will be completely fine. And Hasina is with us in our country, and yes.
She's fled to India.
Yes. And we hope that a better understanding will come up in time. So the people were aroused, they were angry and they were furious, and they were also jubilant with their actions. So I think that's time. Diplomatically, we should wait and watch, and I think things will calm down.
Right. I also picked up on some news, some progress in on the border of China and India. There'd been some fighting, but now they've signed a peace deal of some kind, haven't they?
Yeah, we have got what we call LAC, line of actual control. So both the countries have agreed to stick to that. And so that means there will be no trespassing. And also there will be no objection to patrolling within their limits or boundary of their country. So this is a good sign of peace, I must say. I was very happy about it.
Yeah,
and
that's good news.
This is a good development because some portions, there were blurred boundaries. So because of that, there was some confusion. But now it has been sorted out and both the countries have agreed to maintain peace at the border. And also there is a good friendly relationship among the military regimes at the border.
Yeah, no, that's thank God for that. I think the BRICS thing helps because India and China are meeting up on the BRICS thing.
To me, it looks a good sign of peace. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we mean by peace policy, by having these small gestures.
Precisely.
You gradually get to the bigger gestures.
Yes, right. A small beginning also is to be appreciated and it is to be welcomed, and then look for bigger peace movements.
Good.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I just wanted to flag up, I've been working with Sam Petroda behind the scenes, great Indian American thinker and activist who's been, monitoring what's going on with democracy in India, but also around the world. He's just written a book on democracy around the world. He's our sort of one of our key people in this World Intellectual Wisdom Forum. And we were in touch with the Interparliamentary Union, which is the body that links all parliamentarians around the world and gets them to discuss democracy and proper procedures and constitutions and stuff. It's an important group, and they're doing a lot of online meetings now, webinars on the future of parliamentarianism and democracy. If anyone's interested, I can put you in, get you invites and stuff. They're quite a good body, because most countries in the world have a parliament which is a member of these things. Even Russia and Ukraine, you know, polarized groups still belong to this body. The US, I don't know that the US actually belongs to it, I have to say, with some horror. Amena, maybe you could research that. Interparliamentary Union. We need to get the US to join. Canada's certainly a member, so is Britain. But that's quite good news. And then I just wanted any feedback from the Summit of the Future. You know, the UN made a big hype in September, this great Summit for the Future. Did anyone go or hear about it? We don't have anyone from New York on this call, do we? We've only got Washington. Did you go? Did you hear anything about the Summit of the Future of the UN? I mean, I've seen the documents they passed. It was a heads of state type of thing, and it's all a bit bland to me. And I think I think the UN is making the same mistake the Democrats made. They're going for the details that look politically correct and that appease the kind of the liberal base, you know, which is the talking bubble of UN wisdom people. But they leave out the elephant in the room, like the Gaza genocide, you know, and the inability of the UN to actually solve that. And now we've got UNRWA being disallowed in Gaza. I find that an assault on the integrity and authority of the UN. I don't know why more people, if I was Secretary General of the UN, I would have kicked up a huge fuss by now. But this guy Guterres just seems to you know, not do anything. So Summit of the Future, what about the Summit of the Present? Anyway, that's just my little rant. I was disappointed in it because the UN is a wonderful body. I've spoken twice in the UN headquarters. I know it. I love it. I wish they were doing more for world peace and solving these conflicts. I don't understand why they don't. So if anyone wants to help me, you know, it's like, you know, we need to raise the dead here. That's what Christ was going on about, waking the dead. We need to wake the living dead who are like in positions of power, bureaucrats that don't do much. There are some good people there. I mean, I'm not grumbling about, you know, I'm just grumbling about the output, the quality. Oscar, did you want to comment? Did you follow this Summit for the Future?
Yeah, thank you once again, Thomas. I think I followed the Summit on the Future first, even before it's happening, during the development of some of the key deliverables, such as the Pact for the Future, from the national perspective, which I believe was one of the key outcome document that was being put forth. And in my context, coming into the conversation of the Summit of the Future was from the knowledge of the youth participation in the peace building architecture, and as well as the role of promoting some of the key action points that were being talked on peace financing, the inclusion, some of the commitments that are being made by the governments in the support of the new understanding, the new model of peace that was being put forth that includes both the youth in the process. So it was more of including the youth into the policy influence category, and to ensure that also some of the views are being heard and being advocated at the global level. So there were few sidelines events that happened in regard to the promotion of both the Summit of the Future through the Pact, as well as the Generation for the Future, which are some of the key documents. But then, as you mentioned, the too much politicization, the political aspect into the development is one thing, because trying now to transform the policy into practice is what we come back home from New York, and we ask ourselves if that is something to go by as a reality. There's too much that has been promised, but then it's just to try to translate. Do all these signatories who passed all these are going to actualize on the said commitments that they have put in amending, or is it one of the ticking the boxes within the basket of this is our commitment to show that we are moving as a commitment, as a continent, or as a globe together, but then there's less that is being put in this regard of financing, and just trying to put the entire policies into practice.
Did you say you were in New York, Oscar, for this event? Did you get there?
Yes, I was under the Kenya Coalition on Youth, Peace and Security, representing the CSO's organization in Kenya, who have come together to advance the youth, peace and security agenda.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what, next month, what we'll do is we'll have, if you can do us a proper report, and I'll circulate the documents like the Pact for the Future and stuff beforehand. So we've all read, and then you could give us a 20-minute like rundown of what it was like and all that. That'd be a good way to start next time. I think we're coming up to the end of our meeting. Just to say, there was a Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa in the Pacific, which again I can report on next time. One of my hats, I've got several hats, I'll just turn it around, is head of the Commonwealth Interfaith Network. As a disloyal, heretical Anglican Druid Christian Sufi, I think that the faith traditions of the planet should do more for peace. And, you know, the Commonwealth, we've got 53 nations that are signed up members. Let's get these people doing their thing. I'm sick of religions causing trouble. I want them to cause peace. So my daughter, Shanti Grace, has just married a vicar. So I hope that, you know, we can get more peace thinking. I mean, and just to go back to the beginning, Trump, I mean, he appeals to the Christian base, and yet I wonder if he knows what on earth he's talking about. We'll see. Apparently he got God after he was nearly shot. So we'll pray for miracles. Maybe Trump is going to be the guy to build the nonagon. That'd be fun. I mean, he's just wacky enough to do it. Okay. So let's finish there. And any final meetings? Let's words of wisdom. It's been lovely to meet again. Thank you for your attendance. And yes, let's do our best to carry on the torch. Any last words? Maybe just have a quick go round, just say goodbye. Kaushala, just final one word, sum up what you're feeling.
Okay, very interesting discussions. I quite liked it, and I learned a lot as a person who is non-political. But I would like to emphasize that the peace aspect of the whole thing should be center of our discussion. Sure. And I noticed that at the various steps you have been trying to steer it properly, and I'm quite optimistic that our meetings will remain positive and impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Sean, one word or phrase summing up your responses.
Well, maybe two words: hope and fear at the same time.
There we are. Yes, thank you, Sean. George, final response. How are you feeling?
Thank you so much for. I've also learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to more interactions with all of you. And welcome to Global Peace.
Yeah, thank you. Elif, final words.
As I always say, we need to find new ways to redefine peace, to understand. Logic of peace is perfect. I would like to hear more about it, Thomas.
I can send you the paper. It's finished.
Oh, lovely.
I submitted it to the International Journal for the History of Logic.
Oh.
I was told it was too long, and I should publish it as a book. So it's, you know, God, it's another thing I have to do. But anyway,
thank you.
It's an important one. Thank you, Elif. Amena, last words.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I guess the last thing I would like to leave is with an optimistic note that even though the election nightmare in the US has been crazy, it's it's up to us as the people to hold our leaders accountable. So our work continues. For us at the DOP, our mission continues, and we work with even more tenacity and dedication, and we continue doing the work. And it is bound. People's will prevails at the end. It might be a long haul, but eventually people's will prevails. I truly believe in that.
Well, thank you for all you do, and our love to all the others at your DOP project. Important. Pyrrhus, final words, sir, from Athens. You'll have to unmute, or we can't hear you.
It's not for me to send you the good practice manual, as my head is buzzing at the moment because so much things are happening at work. I think that was a good model. I think that was a way forward, and it focused on a specific group of people: archaeologists, museumologists, heritage professionals, working together. And I'd like to do a presentation on that one day.
Well, maybe do it next month. If you send me the document beforehand, then we can hear from you.
I'll send you the whole good practice manual.
Yeah, do. That would be important. Yeah, thank you. And on Delphic matters, we're doing some good work with the Delphic Academy, and I'll keep you in the loop. And then we're going to have a meeting of the Academy sort of probably in December for this term, and get the invite and all that. So thank you. Lester, final words of wisdom.
Well, I'm struggling. I mean, I'm a practicing Christian today. What comes to my mind recently is the Buddhist idea of moving from anger, and I'm trying.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got a new word that I didn't share in this meeting, but so you all know I've coined this word Sophiaphobia, the fear of wisdom. I think it explains the intense hatred of the other's wisdom. People are terrified of the other's wisdom. They all big up their own wisdom. You know, we're the great, whatever it is. But those people over there, we hate them because their wisdom's different to ours. And I call that Sophiaphobia. I've discovered there's a form of that. Islamophobia is one. That's fear of Islam. Oh, it's terrible. They're all horrible people. But there's a new thing called Christophobia, which is terrified about Christians and Christ. You know, how dare he claim to be the Messiah? We hate them, kind of thing. And I think that's part of why the Israelis are bombing Gaza. They're slaughtering Christians there, as well as Muslims. And I think this is called Christophobia, and we should just name it as it is. Their mistreatment of the Palestinians is because they just hate the whole idea of, Christians. And I'm not talking all Israelis, I'm talking a certain sect of extreme right-wing Zionists who see it as a threat to their ideology. Because, of course, if Christ is actually the king of Israel and the Messiah, then they don't have a leg to stand on. So they have to eradicate that, and it's ontological destruction. So if you're a practicing Christian, check out this concept of Christophobia. And I think it explains a lot. Working on it. How we can reverse that, Yes, and the answer is through love, obviously. Love of the other. Fisayomi, final thoughts, madam.
As always, it's been beautiful being here. I learned a lot. I'll send you emails requesting for some of the documents and how we could also partner together to work on various things that you're writing. I'm currently looking at writing an article about world peace, how that can be achieved. So it'd be great to collaborate and hear thoughts from other people on this platform. But it's been really great hearing different perspectives. Thank you, Thomas, for doing this every time, man. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. Thank you very much for seeing me, and give my love to Ipswich and that marvelous part of the world. Yeah, thank you. Nicolette, do you want to say any final words of wisdom? Can you talk, or you put something in chat? She's just said that she's been attending webinars on the Armenia and Azerbaijan issues. And I think she might be flying somewhere. She's just left the US-Mexico border. So anyway, she's I think just left El Paso, but I don't think for good. Nicolette, final thoughts from you, madam. Are you in the air, or what are you doing at the moment?
Over at Port, I found a quiet place with plugins to charge, but I 5-year-old telephone, and I had to download Zoom. It has no Google, and I did my best. So
okay, so you managed to tune in anyway, and you heard our meeting. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if anyone ever was interested in the Mexico border. I've been there the past 3 years, and I have friends like in Border Patrol and working in detention centers, and there's priests.
Well, it is quite topical, given the wall is a big issue. Maybe you could talk to us about that next time, given you've been living in El Paso, right on the border for the last 3 years. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I was wondering. Okay, I'm headed back to Athens. So
you're going back to Athens. Sensible woman. Colette is actually Greek by origin.
Property didn't, and it's complicated, but I'll find
Well, do talk to us next time and try and get a better connection so we can hear you properly. Okay. It'll be the 30th of November, so yeah, that'll be important. Good. Excellent. And Oscar, final words of wisdom, sir, from Kenya.
Thank you, Thomas Daffern. Mine is first to express my gratitude for the opportunity through both Nicolette and also you and LinkedIn to be on this esteemed forum. And I'm deeply honored for the great insights that I've had from the various speakers, and also just try to bring together all these pressing issues that are facing our world from the different corners that we come from. So mine, I think I'll just say, I look forward to bringing more stories that I think we are having from the grassroots level, from the various spaces that we are working on here in Kenya. And I'm sure that together we can learn and see how we can collaborate into driving them into some impactful projects towards the future. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you so much. Just to say, if you don't know, Napoleon had a book under his pillow of poetry dedicated to Oscar, who was the son of one of the great Irish heroes, the poems of Macpherson. So it's an ancient Irish name you've got there, Oscar. So that's auspicious. Okay, look, folks, thank you for coming and have a great month. And if
thank you,
we'll meet again. Okay, blessings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thomas, and everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Be in touch.